Good morning, everyone. As I was just introduced, my name is Arna, and I'm here to speak today about our department concession process. My colleague, Catherine, you'll see in your program, was due to speak with me. She had a situation at home she had to sort out, so she sends her apologies. And because I can't speak science half as well as she can, I'm solely sticking to the concessions part of our program. So, first things first, what is a concession? A concession or a concession document is a lease, licence, permit or easement granted under Part 3B of the Conservation Act and includes any activity authorised by this document. So this definition is taken from Section 2 of the Conservation Act, and it is essentially the legal instrument that allows you to undertake that specified activity on that specified piece of public conservation land. Now, generally speaking, for beehives, you will be granted a licence, which gives you a non-proprietary interest in that piece of land specified in your concession document. Now, I was thinking about how to present this, and I think I've done things a little bit backwards. Rather than talking about what steps and what types of applications we accept, I went straight to the tests that we will consider any application by. So the first bullet point you'll see up there is Section 4, and you may hear this referred to as our Section 4 relationship, our responsibilities, and our obligation. So the words I've used there are quite deliberate. They all have different connotations, but together they do contribute to what this section means for department employees and their work. Section 4 actually states, this Act, the Conservation Act, shall so be interpreted and administered so as to give effects to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. There are 4 principles the department operates under, and these are partnership, which is mutual good faith and reasonableness, informed decision making, active protection, and finally redress and reconciliation. Practically, this means that we do need to understand the significance of land to iwi. It means that we need to share relevant information through our decision-making process, and it means that our decision makers need to be well informed. What this means in practice, we would be very unlikely to grant a concession over an urapa or a wahitapu site. It may also mean that your concession takes a little bit longer than you anticipate to process, because our decision makers will need to make sure they are fully informed. So Section 17U 1 and 2 are the first in Part 3B, which is the section of the Act which sets out most of our tests. This is the effects test. What are the effects of that specific activity on that specific piece of land, both positive and negative? And if they are negative effects, how can they be avoided, remedied, or mitigated? The next one we've got down there is Section 17U. What is the purpose for which the land is held? So all public conservation land is classified in one form or another, whether that be as a national park, as a type of reserve, as stewardship land. Now, depending on what that definition is and the purpose contained in that definition, it will affect whether hives can be placed on that land. An example of this would be unlikely to allow hive placement on a scientific or a nature reserve simply because of what that type of land is to be managed for. And the final section I've got up there is Section 17W, and this relates to our conservation management plans and strategies. So all of our land in New Zealand is managed by some form of policy document. If a plan states that hives should not be placed in that area, we are very unlikely to recommend that hives be placed in that area. Likewise, for those of you who use helicopters to place hives in more remote zones, please consider your planning documents before you put an application into us. The public conservation land is zoned in a traffic light system. If it says that that helicopters are not allowed in a certain zone, again, we are going to be extremely unlikely to recommend to our decision makers that they allow helicopters into that zone for hive placement. Now, there's 3 types of ways in which we're likely to receive our applications. The first one up there is identification of new opportunities. And this is essentially when an applicant will come to us with a proactive allocation, having identified a piece of land or pieces where beehives have not been placed previously. So the applicant will be required to show to us that, again, the effects of beehive placement in that piece of land can be adequately avoided, remedied and mitigated. And this can be really quite hard in areas of land where hives have not been placed before. We don't have the body of information there or the precedent, which makes it easier for us to evaluate that activity. So referring to the previous slide and all the tests that are there, they will all be used on an application. But for new sites, please pay particular attention to how will you manage those effects you have identified. The next one down there is expiry opportunities. So these arise when a concession term is coming to an end. Like for any commercial contract, when a term comes to an end, the grantor can evaluate that activity and there may or may not be another term granted. Concessions are exactly the same. So for every concession coming up for an expiry, we will evaluate it to determine if that activity should continue. And this means identifying that the effects, including cultural effects, can continue to be avoided, remedied or mitigated, and if there's actually interest from other parties in that same opportunity. If we're satisfied that the criteria for a reissue are met, then we may invite that concessionaire to apply for another term. Equally likely, we may decide that hives are no longer suitable in that particular area because of the effects that have been identified. We may also decide that due to the level of interest in that particular area, that it's a fairer process to run some sort of proactive allocation process. Which brings me to my final point, which is proactive allocation. So when I use that term, I'm referring to things such as expressions of interest, tenders, or requests for proposals. The department manages public conservation land on behalf of all New Zealanders, and this means we have a responsibility to allow interested parties an equal opportunity to apply for opportunities that are available. We also have a responsibility, again, in putting it out to the market to obtain that fair market rental on behalf of New Zealanders. So, moving forward, what are you likely to see in how we manage concessions? We will be moving to more tenders and proactive allocations. And this reflects a couple of things. It reflects the growth in the Mānuka industry, and it reflects the need of the department to allow that equal opportunity for interested parties to have a go and be able to put their applications forward. We're continuing to review what land is suitable for beehive placement, both in terms of new opportunities as we become aware of them, and also as concessions expire. Our body of information is growing, and had Catherine been here, she would have been able to fill that gap in a little bit more. But it does influence how we are managing public conservation land in terms of beehive placement, as well as every other activity that we do permit. We're looking at what information we can have available on our website in terms of where are our sensitive ecological sites and also what are the potential opportunities coming up. The body of information is continuing to grow, which does mean we will have better information available for you as applicants and also for our decision makers. Now, coming to the end of it, we do have our doc website up there, which we are trying to be a little bit better at keeping updated with information in this space. I've also put up our email address for the Hamilton Permissions team, which is where I am based. So if anyone does have any questions about how to apply for concessions, what the process is, how it all works, by all means, please drop us a line. I'm not going to stand up here and take questions at the moment, but I will be around for the whole day. And at the breaks, I can't remember the exact name of the space, but past the Science Lounge, thank you very much. If anyone's got any questions for me, I will be there then. Thank you for your time.